Move to an operational update on the issues of the bushfires, disaster around the country and the work of the Recovery Agency and the deployment of the Recovery Fund, which I announced earlier this week. But firstly, operationally, there are 27 confirmed fatalities, and there have been, on this morning's reports to us, 2,131 homes lost, but I'm sure over the course of the day, as further damage assessments have been undertaken, particularly in Victoria, these numbers continue to sadly change and they continue to escalate. Fire weather is increasing in the south and east today, and it will spike along the east coast tomorrow. Over 1,600 Defence reservists are currently assigned to bushfire operations around the country. In the New South Wales and ACT, the focus is on re-establishing power to blacked-out communities, and there have been literally thousands of homes and customers who have been reconnected just in recent days, but there are still many without power. It's also about getting emergency support to impacted areas and tackling the damage and risk to key infrastructure, such as transmission lines, generators, and there's been a particular effort through the Defence Forces supporting what is occurring at the Eden Woodship Mill. And naval assets remain off the south coast of New South Wales, supporting reconnaissance and prepared to assist with evacuations. And ADF medical personnel have been provided to Tumut Hospital and to Bateman's Bay. I should stress, with the positioning of these assets, particularly the HMS Adelaide and the Choules, that we're a long way from the end of this crisis and this disaster, and their pre-positioning along the coast is very important. These are significant assets with significant capabilities and provide a staging post to render any amount of assistance as required. And as we go into some difficult days, as we're already seeing in South Australia today, and we expect to see on the east coast tomorrow, then those assets being in place, those ships being in place, and what is on those ships, with everything from helicopters and engineering equipment and fully staffed medical facilities, will prove vital in the event they need to be called on at a moment's notice. The Department of Human Services have put additional resources into all service centres and established pop-up service centres in key locations to ensure quick access to relief payments. There are 8 mobile teams out currently. There are 2 buses, and over the course of the next week this will be rolling out to more and more communities. That is going to be done, obviously, in concert with the ADF and the support that they can provide in these communities, but also working closely with organisations in New South Wales such as Services New South Wales, so there can be a whole-of-government, both at Commonwealth and state level, response to the community members in these affected areas. In Victoria, the government has extended their state of disaster declaration for the 6 LGAs impacted by fires in the east of the state. And the focus also remains there on establishing access to isolated communities and getting emergency supplies and assistance to them. This is also including the important work, as we were seeing also in South Australia, of the disposal and burial of livestock carcasses to avoid health and water quality impacts. That work is actually undergoing support from the ADF on Kangaroo Island now, and I've been in discussions with both the New South Wales and Queensland governments about the support that is needed in those areas. Particularly in Victoria, one of the challenges is there are many isolated communities and there are still many roads that are cut off, and so getting access into these areas to undertake those important functions can be very difficult, but that's what our teams are very focused on. The ADF has transported doctors and other medical professionals by helicopter to Mallacoota, while another evacuation by sea was completed by HMS Choules. All those who'd been registered for evacuation of Mallacoota have now been evacuated out of Mallacoota. Our Defence personnel are also assisting in the reopening of the Great Alpine Road, I'm advised, and are working with state road crews to reopen other major roads. In South Australia and Tasmania, where Brigadier Cantwell is leading the Joint Task Force in both of those areas, and he is in Tasmania today. The focus there, and particularly on KI, as I saw yesterday, was on securing water supplies and helping state authorities to strengthen fire breaks and containment lines. And as we've already seen with the difficult fire weather today on Kangaroo Island, one of those containment lines had been broken. Army personnel are also assisting in the construction of that State Emergency Services camp and rescuing injured wildlife and distributing bottled water and bulk water to Kingscote Airport. In Western Australia, let's not forget this is not just on the east coast. The Coolgardie-Esperance Highway has been reopened, but the air highway at the WA and SA border is still closed to all incoming and westbound traffic. Emergency services are optimistic in the air highway, and the WA-SA border will be open within 48 hours, provided conditions remain favourable. And so that is the status update on where things are at from as the Commonwealth has been advised as we speak. National Security Committee met today to consider a series of proposals which have been brought together by ministers in their respective portfolio areas. We are prioritising our focus on a number of matters, and I'll make an announcement on one of those in particular today, but providing that immediate and urgent cash assistance and injection into local communities to meet those most urgent and critical needs as we speak. We must also have a keen focus in the areas of tourism, small business, agriculture, forestry and fishing, the environmental rehabilitation and the habitat restoration, not just in the immediate effect in terms of providing the first aid assistance to wildlife, but the longer-term plans so they have a habitat to return to. And, of course, the health needs, and I'll be making further announcements on the health front in the course of the next few days. But turning in particular to the urgent and initial cash injection that we'll be providing into local government areas, we have agreed that we will be paying $60 million into local government areas that are most affected. That will involve $1 million as a base initial payment going into 42 local government areas, and they are the ones that are either at Category C assistance level now, or we've been in discussions with the state governments about going into Category C assistance, even if that hasn't been fully formalised yet. We expect that to occur with 2 local government areas in Victoria, the largest of those being East Gippsland, which is a very large council area, 2 in South Australia, which includes Kangaroo Island, which is another large area. There are 5 in Queensland, with 1 to be added to that. That includes 1 to be added to that, which is Livingstone, and there are 33 in New South Wales. Now, those of you who've just done the maths, that comes to 42. There's $18 million in addition to that, which at the discretion of the coordinator, Mr Colvin, who's with me here today, and the minister, they will be adding supplementary payments into those most affected group of councils over and above that initial $1 million payment. Now, that will be done on the basis of assessed need, talking with those on the ground in those areas, and particularly the state emergency services and other agencies that are working those areas, as well as liaising with our ADF teams which are in place. It is also to recognise that not all councils have the same population, not all councils have the same area. I mean, when you look at East Gippsland and you compare that to some of the smaller North Coast councils in New South Wales, for example, there is a big difference. And so the coordinator will be ensuring that there is additional support, and that can be many times what is provided in that base payment, to ensure councils have what they need. So what I want to happen is, if you're a mayor out there in one of those areas today, you're out there in your community, you're seeing needs that you know need to be met right now, and people are asking you to meet them. I want to give them the confidence and support by providing this cash assistance right now, so they can say, yes, we can do that. Yes, the council can move in and do that. The Commonwealth is supporting us to go and make these immediate decisions which can provide immediate relief. Now, this can go to supplementing the work that is being done to support the rehabilitation of local infrastructure. It can be on local roads. It can be on restoration of facilities. It can be providing staff and services support in their local areas to assist with whatever the need may be. Our local governments are the governments on the ground when it comes to trying to respond to these types of crises, and they need that immediate cash injection to ensure that they can move confidently and start to respond to what's happening. Of course, this is coming out of the recovery fund, which I announced earlier, and this is a small but very significant initial payment. I said the money would be flowing immediately, and those $1 million payments will be sitting in the state government's bank accounts tomorrow, so they can immediately start distributing those out to those council areas so they can get on with the sorts of things they need to do. But as they go into the next few days, and particularly as they face what they will see tomorrow, they can have great confidence that they'll be in a position to respond, and the resources will be there to back them up. I also want to stress this is initial and urgent. There will be more, and that will be assessed but we are going to be disciplined and careful and consultative in the way we make sure that additional support is rendered into these communities. We want to ensure that we do that in a proper and coordinated way that enables the support to get to the places that need it most. This will be commenced this afternoon with the government being in contact with all of those 42 councils to be communicating this decision directly to them, and obviously to deal with any questions or issues that they would like to raise. That will be another important opportunity to be getting information directly from the ground to further inform our response. There already has been contact with the Premier's Department and the Australian Local Government Association, and this will mean that work can get underway. And I want to stress particularly using local businesses and local contractors to undertake this work where that is what is needed. But there will be further announcements that I'll be making in the days ahead before the National Security Committee meets again to consider further proposals next Tuesday. And between now and then we'll be unfolding some of those further announcements while we work with some of the stakeholders that are particularly engaged in the decisions that we've made today. I want to thank Minister Littleproud for the work that he's been doing with all of the other ministers and all of my ministers who have been feeding in their responses, whether it's in health, whether it's in education, the environment, agriculture, tourism, in Treasury, understanding the economic impacts. All of this is undergoing right now, and the proposals continue to come forward, and the establishment of the Disaster Recovery Fund, Bushfire Recovery Fund, means that we're able to move incredibly quickly to get these resources out and on the ground. Minister.